Hey guys, I've finally done it. I've finally read The Lost Hero, the first book in the Heroes of Olympus series by Rick Riordan. I was super nervous about reading this book because I knew it wasn't going to be from Percy's point of view, at least the first book. And I heard so many things about how everyone hated Jason and Piper, so that kind of put me off reading the book for a while. But since Trails of Apollo came out, and I knew that you had to read these books before you read the Trails of Apollo because the events of these books cause the Trails of Apollo to happen. So I definitely had to read these books before I could read Trails of Apollo. And I have to say, I am so glad I pushed myself to read these books. The first thing I want to say is that I did read the Demigod Files, and I am super glad I did because the short stories that take place in this book are actually mentioned in The Lost Hero as actual events that happened. So if you have not read the Heroes of Olympus series, I would suggest reading the Demigod Files before you pick up the series because the short stories do actually come into play into the, at least the first book's plot. I'm not sure about the rest of them. I gave this book a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads, and the reason it only got a 4 stars is because it started out kind of slow for me, and I think that had more to do with me not being used to dual point of views, and I'm not sure what you call 3 different point of views. But this book switched point of views between Leo, Piper, and Jason. Probably took me, I would say, 100 pages at least to get used to that. I think that's pretty much all I can say without spoiling anyone who hasn't read the book. So for those of you who have not read the book, go read the book. It is fantastic. I loved it. Yeah, it was only 4 out of 5 stars, but I only give 4 stars to books that I would consider rereading. So, bye non-spoilery people. Okay, I finished this book, I would say about 3 hours ago. The ending, when I read that last paragraph, you couldn't even count it as a paragraph. It was just a sentence. But after I read it, it took all my self-control not to throw it across the room. Exactly, Jason agreed. Percy Jackson is at the other camp, and he probably doesn't even remember who he is. That ending, I saw it coming. I mean, I don't know who couldn't have seen that coming because the whole Hera exchanging Jason thing came in like so much, and I was like, well, Percy's missing and Jason's in exchange, so obviously he was exchanged for Percy. Going into this book, I pretty much thought I was going to hate Jason with every fiber of my being, but I was kind of pleasantly surprised that I didn't hate his guts. I'm not saying I like him more than Percy. I think the reason I can't really give a good judge of Jason at this point is because he has amnesia, and even at the end when he gets his memories back, it's not all of them. So I don't know what to think about him. I don't hate him, but it was very aggravating not knowing anything about him at all, which ultimately made reading the book a lot more annoying than it probably needed to be. I kind of spoiled myself a little bit because I started reading the Trails of Apollo summary, and if you have not read this series, well, one, you shouldn't be watching this video up to this point. But do not read the Trails of Apollo summary because it kind of spoils who the big bad enemy is in this book. So, going into this book, the first time I hear Earthwoman, I was like, okay, Gaia's being introduced really early. Another thing about Jason is the fact that before he figured out that Thalia was his sister, I was almost convinced that he was the original Jason from the Greek mythology stories who had been just frozen in time by Hera. It was probably later on in the book when I actually started feeling really, really sorry for Jason and being more sympathetic towards him because, I mean, he does have amnesia. He can't remember anything except the fact that he has a sister. Thalia tells him the story about their mother and how she was just really, really horrible to them and how she basically gave him to Hera on Zeus's orders because Zeus gave Jason to Hera. You don't give someone's life just to appraise your wife because you had an affair with a mortal woman twice. You don't do that. This just made me hate Zeus even more. And we also get the explanation of why Thalia is a Greek descendant and Jason is a Roman descendant. Their mother pictured Zeus as a Greek when Thalia was conceived, and she pictured him as a Roman, or imagined him, whatever, as a Roman when Jason was conceived. So I'm assuming that's how they have both Greek and Roman demigod children. It confused me for the longest time because I was like, wait, they're not in their Roman forms. They're their Greek forms at the moment. They probably won't be the Roman forms for another few hundred years. And they haven't been in the Roman forms for a long time. Their children can't possibly be alive. That's what made me think Jason was frozen in time by Hera or something. But I completely forgot Jason was mortal. Mind blown. Piper is another character that I expected to hate going into this book because I heard so many bad things about her. And I will say it took probably about at least 300 pages into this book before I started liking her because she annoyed me so much. She dwelt on all the bad things that had happened, and she was guilt-ridden for betraying her friends, but she couldn't help it because her dad was in danger. And anytime you read from her point of view, that was the gist of everything you heard. And then you also had to deal with her not relationship with Jason feelings. I mean, I did feel sorry for her. That didn't make her point of view any less annoying to read from. So for over half the book, she annoyed me, but towards the last 250 pages of the book, I really liked her, and I was looking forward to actually reading from her point of view. And can I just say, Aphrodite's way of claiming her children is probably the oddest I've read so far. I'm wondering what the boys look like when they're claimed, because, you know, girls, makeup, dresses, jewelry, the whole shebang. I really want a son of Aphrodite to come into one of these books so we can see how he's claimed. Then we have Leo. I fell in love with Leo from the very first time he spoke. He was just so funny and sarcastic, and given the fact that he has such a dark and scary past, he's just an amazing character and I love him. And I would have to say that after learning about his past, Hera freaks me out even more, and I would not let her babysit my children. I wonder what Hera actually has in store for Leo in the end, because, I mean, she called him, when they were setting her free, she said she chose Leo because of his intelligence and because he was going to be very important. And I think this was the second or third time that someone has said that Leo is going to be very important to this quest. I'm hoping they mean more important than making that flying ship. I mean, he's already proven in this book that he's very resourceful and intelligent, and he's going to be a very, very big help on the quest. He kicked butt in this, and he saved their lives on more than one occasion. Like in the final fight when they are there to save Hera, the snow goddess, I think her name is Kaihoni, but I am not 100% sure. But anyways, this snow witch was behind kidnapping Hera, making Zeus close Olympus by making him overly paranoid. Then she made Elonius, I think that's how you say his name, the Wind Master. She made him turn against all the demigods and want them dead. And she was ultimately the one who killed Festus. I already hated her, and that just made me hate her so much more. I mean, she talked Hera, and I do not like Hera at all. But anyways, I loved how she's all confident in everything, that she's frozen the hunters, and she's gonna win. They're gonna raise this giant Oniron. I don't know how to say the giant's name. It's very complicated. But the anti-Zeus giant. And she summons this blizzard, intending on freezing all them, and Leo just makes a wall of fire that dissolves all the snow. See, lady, that's what happens to snow in Texas. It freaking melts. All I could do is laugh when I read that. Leo is just so funny and badass and such a lovable character. And he single-handedly takes that witch on and forces her to flee for her life. I also loved how Leo talked to Hera. He talked to her like she was still his babysitter, and like she wasn't the queen of the gods and could smite him down at any moment. When Jason gets the quest, and it specifically says beware of Earth, Leo gets the idea that he's gonna go find the dragon. The dragon leads him to Bunker 9 after he fixes him to a point. Freaking fine, the dragon had wings. This dragon is brought up in the Demigod Files, which is how they found it, and Beckendorf ended up, Annabeth ended up reattaching the head, and Beckendorf ended up deactivating it. So I don't know how it got reactivated, but Leo fixes it in this book and attaches wings to it, and we are flying on Happy the Dragon for a good part of this book. And I really hated it when he died because he saved them so much. I think the person I hated the most in this book was probably Medea, because she was literally the witch or sorceress that was behind everything. She's the one that saw the 7 demigods from the prophecy. She's the one that woke up Gaia. And when she woke up Gaia, Gaia went after Leo and caused the death of his mother. So Medea's really the reason that Leo's mother is dead. And she's also controlling Piper's dad's assistant, Jane. Hate that woman, by the way. And she's manipulating her into keeping the fact that Piper's father is missing under wraps. Speaking of Percy, I knew he wasn't going to be in this book, but it did make me think after hearing about Jason's achievements in the Roman camp, one of which was defeating the Titan Cryos. I think that's his name. But he defeated Cryos on Mount Tam and destroyed Kronos' throne. At the same time, Percy and the rest were fighting Kronos in Manhattan. It was simultaneous. So that makes me think that the events of this book and the events of the Son of Neptune are happening at the same time. I don't know, it's just going to be hard to imagine that this storyline is taking place at the same time this storyline is, and then I guess in Mark of Athena they clash, which would explain the book cover of Mark of Athena in a way. I hope to be starting Son of Neptune soon, so hopefully I'll know if the storylines are taking place at the same time or not. Please don't spoil me in the comments. There's something else that was bothering me when I was reading this, and I'm wondering if it will become important in the later books. After Leo and Piper break Hera out of her cage, Hera goes full goddess mode, you know, in her true form you're not supposed to look at, and Jason looks at her. You're supposed to be like incinerated if you look at a god or goddess in their true form, and it just makes me wonder why Jason was able to wake up. He gasped and his eyes flew open. For a moment they were full of light, glowing pure gold. Then the light faded and his eyes were normal again. I'm just wondering if the glowing eyes thing is going to become relevant later on. Like, is there something that happened to him when he saw Hera? I mean, like, is he gonna have like new powers now, or is he gonna be able to resist certain things now? I mean, it's like, what the heck is gonna happen? And then we get to the end of the book where they're all back at camp. And I love how everything wraps up for Piper and Leo. Piper, after everything she's been through, she's not gonna take crap from Drew, and she really doesn't even care about her, but she takes over the Aphrodite cabin and basically puts Drew in her place and claims Jason as hers, which may not turn out good for her because Jason remembers quite a few people from his past, and one may or may not be his girlfriend. We are not sure at this point. But I'm hoping everything turns out good for her because I really did like her at the end of this book. And then Leo, he shares with Chiron, Piper, Jason, and all of the Hephaestus campers Bunker 9, which was apparently like a war room when the Greeks and Roman demigods were fighting each other during the Civil War. He shares with them the bunker, and then he shows them the drawing he made of the flying ship that was like a replica of a picture that was already in the bunker from 1864. So they have a mission to build this flying ship in 6 months so they can fly to the Roman demigod camp and then fly to Greece so they can stop the giants. And during all this, Nessa, I don't know how to say her name, and Jack, the one who is the current Hephaestus camp counselor, decides that Leo should be their counselor. And I just felt so happy for Leo. He was being accepted, he had a family again. And then to put a damper on things, we have the last couple chapters where Jason's talking to Hera, and then he has a meeting with all the counselors and they're recounting their adventure, and then they're also talking more about the Roman and Greek demigods, how they aren't supposed to interact with each other. And then we have that very frustrating last sentence that I've already talked about. The good news is, when they finally get that ship flying, Annabeth is going with them. Well, those are all my thoughts for The Lost Hero by Rick Riordan. Overall, it was a very good book, but it was also very frustrating because pretty much the whole amnesia thing kept you guessing through over half the book about what the hell is going on. I think my favorite moment in this book is actually one I didn't discuss in this video, and that was when Thalia and the hunters show up to save Jason and all of them from Lycon, the werewolf. My favorite part was how Leo was acting around Thalia and all of his funny "I'm so cool" comments. And the way Thalia was just ignoring him, which just made it even funnier. So that was my favorite moment of the book. Let me know in the comments below what y'all's favorite moment was. Until next time, guys. Bye!